Andre Washington was 38 years old, and for 3 years he had been leaving before sunrise and coming home after midnight, 80 hours a week to pay down the mortgage on the home he shared with his wife, Brianna, and build a life she kept telling him wasn't enough. He never complained. He trusted her completely. He was 3 months from paying off their second mortgage, and 2 weeks from surprising her with a weekend trip where he planned to tell her everything was about to change. Then a canceled work order sent him home early on a Thursday afternoon. The silver BMW parked behind his garage didn't belong to any neighbor. The smell of jerk chicken drifting through his back door wasn't Brianna's cooking, and the man standing at Andre's kitchen island, wearing Andre's robe, pouring Andre's bourbon, laughing with Andre's wife, had no idea who he was standing in front of. Neither did Brianna. What Andre Washington did next would cost them both everything they thought they'd already won. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. Andre Washington was already awake. He had been lying in the dark for 20 minutes, running the day's schedule in his head the way other men ran miles, methodically, without complaint, one step at a time. Inbound freight from the Memphis hub. 2 drivers calling out sick. The hair of account audit that needed to be cleaned before 9 or the whole morning would cascade into something ugly. He sat up. The other side of the bed was cool and smooth. Brianna had gone to bed early again, or maybe not early. He had come in after midnight, and she was already asleep, her back to the door in the particular way that had stopped feeling accidental about a year ago. He dressed in the dark. He did not turn on the light. By 5:15, he was at his desk at the distribution center, a large metal building off Route 9 that smelled like rubber and cold concrete. 20 staff, 3 loading docks, routing software that worked beautifully when it worked and turned catastrophic the moment it didn't. Andre moved through the floor with the unhurried authority of a man who had earned it the slow way, not through volume or performance, but through being right consistently over time. His crew knew the difference. New managers came in loud, making noise to cover uncertainty. Andre came in quiet, and the noise stopped on its own. He ate a protein bar over a scheduling report at 7:40. He took his coffee black. He did not sit down again until 11. This was Tuesday. Tuesday was the same as Monday. Monday was the same as the Friday before it. The number he kept in the back of his mind, the one he returned to when the hours got punishing, and the drive home felt longer than the drive in, was 3 months. 3 months, and the second mortgage was gone. 3 years of brutal hours, missed dinners, the cold side of the bed. And in 3 months, the foundation would be solid, real, paid for in full. He had something else held back too, something he hadn't told Brianna yet. The regional director position had been on the table for 6 weeks. More responsibility, yes, but 40-hour weeks, normal hours. The kind of schedule that left room for a person to actually exist inside their own life. His supervisor had been patient, had given him the time without pushing, which Andre respected. He wasn't ready to tell Brianna yet. He wanted to do it right. He had a weekend trip planned, a small inn on the water, 2 hours south, the kind of place with no televisions in the rooms, and a restaurant that served breakfast at any hour you asked for it. He had a speech rehearsed. Not formal, not stiff, just the things he wanted her to hear. That the hard part was almost over. That things were about to change. That from here forward, he would be both present in the ways that mattered and present in the room. He wanted to see her face when he said it. He noticed the wine glass the first time on a Tuesday evening 3 weeks back. He had come home before midnight for once and gone to the kitchen for water, and there it was, rinsed and returned to the upper cabin on the left. He and Brianna kept the wine glasses on the right. He stood there for a moment, looking at it. And he put it where it belonged and went to bed. The guest towel was a Saturday. The stiff ivory ones his mother had given them as a housewarming gift, the ones Brianna insisted on keeping for company. One had been used and rehung, slightly uneven. Andre straightened it without thinking about why it needed straightening. The cologne was harder to dismiss. Just a trace near the downstairs bathroom door, something cedar and expensive that was not his. He stood in the hallway for a long moment. He told himself he was probably imagining it. He was good at deciding he was probably imagining things. Her texts had changed. Not all at once. Gradually, the way a tide goes out without announcing itself. A year ago, they were warm, specific, small, funny observations about her day. Now they were logistical. Running late? Don't wait up. Did you pay the water bill? Short, flat, efficient in a way that left no room for anything extra. When he was home, her complaints had a rhythm. You're never here. You don't see me. I have needs you just don't think about. He absorbed each one with the guilt of a man who believed her unhappiness was a problem he had caused, and therefore owed it to her to fix. He was working on fixing it. 3 more months, the trip, the speech, the promotion. All of it was coming. She just had to hold on a little longer. On a Thursday afternoon, a shipment delay out of Memphis cleared by 1:30. He texted Brianna. Schedule cleared up. Heading home early. You need anything? He waited. 3 minutes, 5, 10. No response. Yoga. He figured she went Thursdays now. He put his phone in his pocket and pointed his car toward home. Windows down, the early afternoon light cutting long and golden across the highway. He thought about the trip, about the inn, about the way she would look when he said it. He turned onto their street at 217. The silver BMW was parked behind the garage, half-tucked, nose angled away from the street. The angle of someone who knew the layout, who knew which parts of the driveway were visible from the street and which parts weren't. Andre stopped his car at the foot of the driveway. He looked at the BMW for a long moment. Then he pulled in slowly, parked, and cut the engine. He went in through the back door. The smell hit him before anything else. Jerk chicken, warm bread, the deep, slow smell of a meal someone had made with time and care and nowhere else to be. Music drifted from the kitchen, low and easy, something with a slow groove he didn't recognize. Then he heard her laugh. He stopped walking. It was Brianna's laugh. The real one, the loose one, the one that came from somewhere unguarded. He had not heard that laugh in over a year. He had heard the polite version, the social version. But this one, open, unhurried, completely unperformed, this was the laugh she used when she forgot to manage herself. He rounded the corner into the kitchen. The man was standing at Andre's kitchen island. Tall, well-built, wearing Andre's robe, the thick navy one, the Christmas gift from his mother 2 years ago. He wore it open and easy, like he had worn it before, like it fit the shape of his afternoon. He was eating from Andre's good plates, and he had one hand around Andre's bottle of 15-year bourbon, tilting it over a glass with the comfortable pour of a man helping himself to what was already his. Brianna stood at the stove in a silk wrap, her hair loose, smiling at something the man had just said. Nobody moved. Andrei looked at his wife. He held her gaze long enough for her to understand something was different, long enough for the quality of his stillness to reach her. Then he said very quietly, "Get him out of my house." The man set the bourbon glass down on Andrei's kitchen island. He raised one hand, a patient, diplomatic gesture, the voice smooth and calibrated, the tone of someone who had talked his way out of difficult rooms before. "Andrei," he said, like they were old acquaintances, "let's not make this something it doesn't need to be." Andrei turned and looked at him. The man stopped. Andrei did not raise his voice. He did not move toward him. He let the silence sit for exactly as long as it needed to sit. "You're standing in a man's house," he said, "wearing a man's robe, eating a man's food. I need you to understand who the man is." The man left. And then it was just Andrei and Brianna, and the question he needed answered. How long? Not a question. A demand for information delivered like one. The man left. He gathered himself with a deliberate slowness that was its own performance of calm. But he left. The back door opened and closed. 30 seconds later, the BMW's engine turned over in the driveway, and music was still playing. Andrei looked at his wife. How long? Brianna opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. She started somewhere in the neighborhood of denial. It's not. And then appeared to realize, looking at him, that the particular face he was wearing had no use for that. She shifted. It wasn't serious, she said. It got out of hand. It was complicated. How often? She looked at the stove. What did you tell him about our finances? Her eyes came back to him. Then something moved through them. Not guilt, something closer to calculation. She turned it into indignation with a speed that told him she had been holding it ready. You want to talk about finances? Andrei, you're never home. You haven't been home in 3 years. I've been alone in this house. I have needs. I have a life that needed Brianna. She stopped. And then, in a voice that was quieter but carried everything she had been building toward, she said it. You were never here anyway. Andrei picked up his keys from the counter. He did not slam the door. He did not say another word. He walked out of the kitchen, through the back hallway, and out into the afternoon air. He got in his car and drove. He didn't know how long he drove or which streets he took. He just moved through the city on automatic until the roads opened up and a parking lot appeared on his right, empty and wide, and he pulled in and stopped the car and turned off the engine. Then it was just him and the silence and the full weight of what he had just walked into. The parking lot was empty except for him. The engine ticked as it cooled. The afternoon light was going orange and flat, stretching long shadows across the cracked asphalt. Andrei sat with both hands in his lap and stared at nothing and let it come. It came, the image of Patrick at his kitchen island, the robe open at the collar. His robe, the one his mother had picked out, the one he had worn on Christmas morning 2 years ago, when life still looked exactly like what he thought it was. The pour of the bourbon, the way the man's chin had lifted when he looked Andrei over, making his assessment, reaching his conclusion. The particular quality of that look, not fear, not shame, just the bored calculation of someone who had already decided this was a problem he could manage. Brianna's laugh, the real one, the loose one, coming out of the kitchen like it belonged there, like it had been living there all along. In the middle of Tuesday afternoons, while Andrei was running overnight schedules and eating cold protein bars over a desk 40 miles away. You are never here anyway. He pressed the back of his head against the headrest and closed his eyes. The grief was not abstract. It was physical, a pressure behind his sternum, a specific heaviness in his hands, a tightness at the back of his throat that he breathed through slowly and deliberately. He did not fight any of it. He let it be exactly as big as it was. He thought about the weekend trip, the hotel reservation, the restaurant he had bookmarked 3 months ago, the speech he had been refining in quiet moments. Things are changing. I'm changing them. We get our life back now. He had believed that speech was going to mean something to her. He had believed it the way a man believes in a thing he has worked toward for years, without ever questioning whether the person beside him still wanted to arrive at the same destination. He sat with that, too. And then, not right away, but gradually, the way a room comes into focus after the lights come up, his mind began to do what his mind did. It organized. He did not ask it to. It just started, the same way it started every time a crisis arrived at work. Not with panic, not with speed, but with a slow, deliberate inventory of what he knew and what he didn't. The house was in both names. That was the first fact. His income was the dominant income. By a margin, it wasn't close. Brianna's part-time position at the interior design firm paid enough to cover her car note and some personal spending, and that was about the sum of it. Without his income, the life they were living in that house, the mortgage, the utilities, the good bourbon, the ceramic plates they brought down for company, none of it held. He was 3 months from clearing the second mortgage. The things he didn't know. He didn't know how long it had been running. He didn't know what she had told Patrick about their money. And the fact that she had deflected that specific question twice was not something he was willing to set aside. He didn't know the full shape of what he was inside. Moving without full information was the only way to lose. He understood that the same way he understood logistics. You do not reroute a shipment until you know every variable that caused the delay. You do not make the call until you have the picture. He pulled out his phone. He scrolled to a number he knew by memory and pressed call. It rang once. Andre, Kurt Maddox's voice came through, already alert. "I need you, brother," Andre said. A pause, not hesitation. The pause of a man reading a tone and understanding immediately what category of call this was. "Name the time and place," Kurt said. That was all. Andre ended the call. He sat for a moment. Then he scrolled again. His mother answered on the second ring. "I need somewhere to sleep tonight," he said. "I'm not hurt. I just need the door." A brief silence, the kind that meant she heard everything he hadn't said. "The door is open," Diane said. "Drive safe." He put the phone on the passenger seat. He looked out through the windshield at the empty parking lot, at the orange light going gray at the edges. He was not going to file anything tomorrow. He was not going to call Patrick. He was going to get everything there was to get, every fact, every number, everything they thought he would never know. He reached forward and started the car. Then he drove to his mother's house. The diner smelled like coffee and bacon grease and the particular warmth of a room that opens at 5 in the morning and never really cools down. Andre got there first. He took the corner booth in the back, wall on 2 sides, clear line to the door, and ordered black coffee and did not look at his phone. Kurt arrived at 7 on the dot. He looked at Andre the way you look at a man you've known since you were both 22 and scared in a country wasn't yours, with full attention and no performance attached to it. "Tell me everything," Kurt said. So Andre did, and Kurt listened without interrupting once. Then he opened his laptop. "Give me 48 hours," he said. What he came back with 2 days later was not what Andre had expected. It was worse. And it had a name. They met again at the same booth 2 days later. Same corner, same bad lighting, same coffee that had been sitting on a burner since before either of them arrived. Kurt placed a manila folder on the table between them. He did not open it immediately. He let Andre settle. "Patrick Osei," Kurt said, 41, real estate developer, mid-sized operation, mostly mixed-use commercial. Good reputation on the surface. Moves in circles where money and visibility matter. He opened the folder. And he's been busy. The first page was estate LLC filing. Andre looked at it and felt the specific cold of something he had suspected without being ready to name. Osei Holloway Development Partners, LLC, filed 4 months ago. 2 listed co-founders, Patrick Osei, Brianna Holloway, Washington. Andre read her name twice, not because he didn't understand it, because he needed a moment to let it be real. Initial capitalization, Kurt said, his finger moving to a line near the bottom. $14,000. He let that land. Then he set down a bank document beside it, not from the LLC, but from Andre and Brianna's joint savings account. A transaction history. 8 weeks of withdrawals. Small ones. 400 here, 600 there, 900 once. Never the same number twice. Never large enough to trip an automatic alert. Each one perfectly sized to disappear inside the noise of ordinary spending, until you put them all in a column and added them up. $14,000. 8 weeks. Planned down to the increment. Andre sat very still. He had worked 3 back-to-back overnight shifts in February to cover a contract shortfall. He remembered because he had called Brianna from the warehouse at 2 in the morning, and she had answered sounding half asleep and said she missed him. He remembered being grateful for that. He had driven home at 6 in the morning, feeling like the sacrifice was worth something. She had withdrawn $400 that same day. She wasn't just having an affair, Andre said. His voice was level, just an observation, just a fact being placed into the correct category. She was building something. No, Kurt said. She was building something. Andre nodded once. He looked at the documents for another moment, then looked up. Kurt reached into the folder a second time and placed a photograph on the table. A woman, mid-30s, natural hair pulled back, wool coat, a leather bag over one shoulder. She was stepping out of a downtown condo building on what appeared to be a Sunday morning, completely unaware she was being photographed. She looked composed. She looked like someone who knew exactly where she was going. Camille Brooks, Kurt said, 37, licensed financial advisor. She's been with Osei for 3 years. 6 weeks ago, she was his date at his firm's charity gala. Her name's in the event recap on their website, photograph and everything. By everything I can find, she thinks she's in an exclusive relationship. Andre looked at the photograph for a long moment. He did not feel contempt for her. What he felt was something quieter than that. Recognition almost, the particular quality of a person who does not yet know the thing that is about to change everything. How deep does his pattern go? Andre asked. Kurt's expression shifted, not into surprise, but into the particular flatness of a man delivering a number he had hoped would be smaller. I'm still pulling thread, he said, but this isn't the first time. Keep going, Andre said. He closed the folder. He left 2 bills on the table for the coffee. He parked in the driveway 20 minutes later, sat for a moment with the engine off, the folder on the passenger seat. The afternoon light, the same ordinary light it always was. The house looked exactly like it always looked. He picked up the folder. He got out of the car. He walked to the front door, put his key in the lock, and went inside. Dinner was quiet. Brianna had made pasta, his favorite, the one with the lemon cream sauce she only pulled out when she was trying to say something she couldn't find words for. The table was set properly, candles lit. She had changed into a soft blue dress, hair down, and she moved around the kitchen with a careful, gentle energy that Andre recognized immediately for what it was. A performance. Patient and practiced, and aimed directly at him. He ate. He asked about her day. He listened. He offered nothing that could be used against him, and took nothing at face value. When she touched his hand across the table briefly, her eyes searching his face for a signal, he did not pull away. He also did not give her the signal she was looking for. He was watching something else entirely. Because on Friday morning, she would leave her phone on the bathroom counter, and what he would see on that screen in 30 seconds would confirm that she was not managing a situation. She was managing him. The phone was the thing that confirmed it. Brianna had always kept her phone near her, but the angle had changed. Screen tilted down on the table during dinner, carried into the bathroom, turned face down on the knitstand in a way it hadn't been before. Small adjustments, the kind a careful person makes when they are having a conversation they don't want seen. Andre said nothing about it. He just watched. On Friday morning, she was in the shower. Her phone sat on the bathroom counter. He walked in to get his watch from the hook behind the door. The screen had lit up with an incoming message. He picked it up. The contact read Poe. He scrolled up just far enough, 30 seconds, maybe 40, and photographed 3 separate exchanges with his own phone before setting hers back exactly where it had been. He looked at the photographs in the hallway. The thread was clear. Brianna had told Patrick that Andre was devastated but quiet, that there had been no legal threats, no attorney mentioned, that she believed he was withdrawing, breaking down inward, the way he always does when things get hard. She told Patrick the situation was under control, that Andre was, in her own precise words, broken up, but manageable. He put his phone in his pocket. He walked downstairs and made his own coffee. He listened to the shower running and thought about that word. That evening, he sat at the desk in the guest room after Brianna had gone to bed. He opened his laptop and navigated to a cloud account they had set up years ago, a shared backup system Brianna had asked him to configure after she lost photographs from a vacation. He had handled it in 20 minutes, and neither of them had thought about it since. He had thought about it once, briefly, sitting in Kurt's diner booth. Now he opened it. The account held what cloud backups hold: photographs, synced files, the archived contents of connected email accounts. Brianna's was still linked. She had forgotten. He had not. He found the thread in under 10 minutes. 14 months of emails between Brianna and a woman named Sonia, a mutual friend from college who had moved to Atlanta 4 years ago, far enough away to be confided in safely. He read the thread from the beginning. It took 40 minutes. The first emails were unhappy in the way people are when a life they chose has stopped feeling like the right choice, restless, dissatisfied. Brianna described feeling invisible, feeling like a supporting character in a life that was supposed to be hers too. She described Andre's hours, his exhaustion, his absence. She wrote about it with a pain that felt real. Andre read it carefully and let it sit. Then Patrick appeared in the thread. 8 months in, the tone shifted. The restlessness sharpened into intention. She described meeting him, the early conversations, the way the attention felt. She described the LLC, the withdrawals, describing the increment amounts with satisfaction, noting which amounts would pass unnoticed. And then the email from 7 months ago, dated the 3rd Sunday of March. He read it 3 times. In it, Brianna described a conversation she had with Patrick about the house, specifically about the challenge of Andre's legal claim on the equity they had built together. Patrick had raised the possibility, framed his strategy, that if the separation could be positioned correctly, if Andre's emotional response could be amplified rather than managed, there was a real chance he would simply step aside. That a man devastated enough, disoriented enough, convinced that fighting would only extend his pain, might willingly concede rather than endure a prolonged legal process. Brianna had written back the same day. That's exactly how he works. He processes privately. He doesn't fight out loud. If he believes the situation is already decided, he'll try to take it with dignity. That's always been his thing. Make him feel like it's already over, and he'll act like it's already over. He sat with that for a long time. She had not just planned to leave. She had planned to use his grief as a door she could walk through, carrying everything on her way out. She had mapped him, studied the way he moved through pain, and built a strategy around it. She had taken the truest thing about him, the dignity with which he absorbed hard things, and turned it into a mechanism of extraction. He closed the laptop. He got his phone in his jacket and walked out through the back door. He sat in his car in the dark driveway and called Patricia Wren. She picked up on the second ring. "Mr. Washington, I have more," he said. "I want to walk you through all of it before Thursday." She said, "Go ahead." He laid it out in order. The LLC, the $14,000, the text thread with Patrick, the email chain, 14 months, the March email specifically, the language about his nature and how they planned to use it. He spoke without heat, without editorializing, without a single word that wasn't a fact. When he finished, Patricia Wren was quiet for a moment. "Forward everything to the secure link I sent you," she said. "All of it tonight, if possible." "Already done," he said. "Thursday at 9, Mr. Washington. Don't discuss any of this before then." He said he understood. He ended the call. He sat in the car for another minute, looking at the back of the house. The kitchen light was on. He put his phone in his pocket. He went back inside. He made a fresh pot of coffee. He sat down at the kitchen table. Brianna came downstairs a few minutes later, drawn by the smell or the light. She smiled at him carefully across the kitchen, the smile of a woman who had decided things were moving in the right direction. Andre wrapped both hands around his mug. He said nothing at all. His mother had something to tell him, too. It came out at the kitchen table, the same table with the gouge near the edge from the time he was 11 and tried to fix his bicycle inside in January. Diane set 2 mugs down and looked at her son steadily and said, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me get through all of it before you say anything." 2 years ago, she had seen Brianna at a restaurant. A man she didn't recognize. A hand placed over his on the table, not quickly, not like a hello. The gesture of someone who had been doing it for a long time and didn't think about it anymore. She had said nothing. She had carried it for 2 years. And what she said to Andre across that kitchen table about why she stayed silent was one of the most honest things a parent had ever said to him in his life. The porch light was already on when he pulled up. Diane Washington opened the door before he could knock, which meant she had been watching for his headlights. She was in her housecoat and reading glasses, and she looked at him the way she had looked at him since he was a boy, like she could see every part of him at once and was not afraid of any of it. "Come inside," she said. "I made tea." The kitchen smelled like chamomile and the faint cedar of the candle she kept on the windowsill above the sink. The table was the same one from his childhood. Solid oak, 4 chairs, a small gouge near the edge from the time he was 11 and tried to fix his bicycle inside in January. He sat in the same chair he had always sat in. Diane set a mug in front of him and sat across from him and folded her hands and looked at him steadily. "Tell me what you know so far," she said. He told her. The LLC, the withdrawals, Camille Brooks, Kurt still pulling the thread. Diane listened without flinching. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she took a slow breath and set both palms flat on the table. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I need you to let me get through all of it before you say anything." Andre nodded. 2 years ago, she began, I was having lunch with Carol at that Italian place on Marston Street. She paused. I saw Brianna. Andre was still. She was at a table by the window, sitting across from a man I didn't recognize. I almost went over. Diane's voice stayed even, but her hands pressed a little harder against the table. I didn't. Some instinct told me to stay where I was and just watch. She had watched for 20 minutes. The man was well-dressed, confident, a kind of confident that came from a life without much friction. But it wasn't the man she remembered. It was Brianna's hand. She reached across the table, and she put her hand over his, Diane said. Not quickly, not like a hello, like someone who has been doing it for a long time and doesn't think about it anymore. She had left before Brianna could see her. That same evening, she mentioned casually to Brianna on the phone that she had been in that neighborhood for lunch. Brianna had said, "Oh, how nice," and asked about Carol, and never mentioned the restaurant, never mentioned the lunch, never offered a name. "I noticed," Diane said, "and I filed it." There were 2 visits after that. Both times, Brianna stepped outside to take a call. Both times she returned with her face arranged too carefully, slightly too composed, slightly too returned to normal. She looked at her son. I spent 30 years watching people manage their expressions on the witness stand. I know what that work looks like. She had said nothing. She had no proof, only instinct and a hand across a restaurant table, and a face rearranged 1 beat too deliberately. She had told herself she could not wound her son on instinct alone. "I have thought about that decision every single day since Thursday," she said. Andre reached across the table and covered her hands with his. "You did right," he said, "with what you had." He meant it. He held her hands until she looked at him and could see that he meant it. "You did right." Diane pressed her lips together and nodded once. She held on to his hand for a moment longer than usual before she let go. "The attorney," Andre said. "Patricia Wren," Diane said, her voice steadying immediately. 6 years in family law. I worked across from her on 2 cases years ago. She is meticulous. She does not lose asset disputes." She paused. I called her Friday morning. "She has a Thursday opening, 9 o'clock. Confirm it," Andre said. Diane nodded. She picked up her mug. He picked up his. They sat together in the kitchen that smelled like chamomile and cedar, at the table with the gouge near the edge, and did not need to fill the silence with anything at all. There was one more person who knew something. She had been sitting with it for almost a year, and she had decided that carrying it alone was no longer something she was willing to do. April, Brianna's younger sister, reached out through a mutual contact and asked if Andre would meet her. He did, and what April told him at the corner booth of a coffee shop, away from windows, away from anyone who might know either of them, was not just confirmation of what he already knew. It was the piece of the picture that showed him the full scope of how long this had been planned. "Make the transition by next spring," April said. That's the phrase she used. She was already there when he arrived. A table near the back of the coffee shop, away from the windows. Her hands wrapped around a mug she had clearly been holding for a while without drinking from. Gray cardigan, hair pulled back simply. When she looked up and saw Andre walk through the door, something in her face did what faces do when a decision made privately is about to be spoken out loud. Andre ordered a black coffee and carried it to the table. He sat down across from her. "April." "Hey." She looked down at her mug, then back up. "Thank you for coming." "Of course." She nodded slowly, like she was confirming something to herself. She opened her mouth, closed it, then started again. Not from the beginning she had rehearsed, but from somewhere in the middle, the way people do when the prepared version stops feeling like the true one. "I knew something was wrong," she said. "I've known for almost a year, and I didn't say anything. I need you to know that I know that." Andre said nothing. He held his coffee and listened. "About a year ago, Thanksgiving weekend, your mom's birthday dinner, the one at Marcus's place." She set her mug down. "Brianna brought someone. She introduced him as a professional contact, a developer she was doing some work with, Patrick. She said the name plainly. I watched them for almost an hour. The way he touched the back of her chair when he walked past. The way she laughed at things he said. The way she looked at him when he was talking to someone else." She paused. "I know what professional contacts look like. That was not that. Did she know you noticed?" Andre asked. I don't think she cared. April said it without bitterness, just precision. Brianna has always believed she's the smartest person watching any room. She doesn't always notice who else is watching. The coffee shop was quiet around them. "I didn't say anything," April continued. "Not to you, not to her, not to anyone. She's my older sister. And the way I have always worked inside this family is that I defer. I support. I don't push back on Brianna." She paused. "I'm telling you this because I want you to understand it wasn't indifference. I knew what I was doing by staying quiet. I just kept choosing the easier thing. April, I'm not finished. Not sharp. Just certain." At that same dinner, I went to get my jacket from the back bedroom and passed the hallway. Brianna was on the phone. She had stepped away from the group. April looked at the table for a moment. I only caught part of it. She was talking about timing. She said she wanted to make the transition by next spring. That's the phrase she used. Make the transition. She said it like it was something that had already been decided. The room was quiet. I didn't understand exactly what she meant, April said. I told myself it could have been anything. Work, a project. She lifted her eyes. I understand it now. Andre looked at her for a moment. Then he said, and he meant it fully, "Thank you." April seemed to feel it. Her shoulders came down slightly, like something she had been bracing against had finally let her go. She started to rise. Then she stopped. She looked at him one more time, standing there with her jacket in her hands. And what she said next, she said carefully. Not as a rehearsed line, but as a commitment she was making to herself as much as to him. Whatever she asks me to say when this gets legal. A pause. I won't say it. I want you to know that. I hear you, Andre said. April nodded once. She pulled on her jacket and walked out. He sat for a few minutes after she left. Then he paid the check, went to his car, and made 3 calls. The first was to Kurt, finalize the documentation package. The second was to Diane. Thursday confirmed. The third was to Patricia Wren. Prepare to file. She said, I'll have everything ready. That evening he came home to dinner already on the table. After he washed the dishes, he went upstairs, showered, and got into bed. He closed his eyes. He slept through the night fully, deeply, without interruption. For the first time since the Thursday afternoon, he had turned into his driveway and seen a silver BMW parked at the wrong angle. Patricia Wren's office was on the 14th floor of a building downtown, and it looked exactly like the office of a woman who had spent 26 years winning, not loud about it, not decorated to impress, just precise, clean lines, organized shelves, a desk surface with nothing on it that didn't need to be there. She walked him through the petition, the LLC documentation, the fraud dispute package. Then she set the signature pages in front of him in the correct order. He signed where indicated. She said, I'll file this afternoon. He rode the elevator down to the lobby and walked out into the morning with the particular feeling of a man who has just done something that cannot be undone and is completely at peace with that fact. The next morning, he was at the bank by 9. And at 11:04 that same morning, a process server walked into the lobby of the interior design firm where Brianna Washington worked part-time. The settlement terms that came back were not what Brianna had built toward. The house, the equity, the financial foundation, she had spent 2 years quietly positioning herself to walk away with. Gone, or divided, or disputed, down to amounts that wouldn't carry her where she intended to go. The exit she had engineered with such care had delivered her somewhere smaller than the life she left. She called April on a Thursday evening. April answered. She listened to all of it, the version Brianna needed her to confirm, the shape of the marriage as Brianna had come to describe it, the things she would need April to say if asked. She listened without interrupting, the way she had always listened to her older sister. Then she said no. No speech, no list of grievances, no performance of moral authority. Just the word, offered quietly and without apology, followed by 2 things she said she needed Brianna to hear, that she was sorry for how hard this was, and that she had her own thinking to do about how long she had stayed silent when she shouldn't have. It was the most honest conversation the 2 sisters had ever had. Brianna did not call again for 2 months. At the design firm, nobody made an announcement. Nobody had to. The fraud dispute was a matter of record, and records have a way of becoming ambient knowledge in small professional environments, past in the particular. Silence of people who know something and have agreed without discussion not to say it directly. The client Brianna had been presenting to when the envelope was handed over quietly moved their account to another firm 3 weeks later. The email was polite and offered no explanation. Brianna was not fired. She was sidelined in the ways that matter, the accounts that count, the clients with real budgets, the work that builds a career. She survived it. But surviving is not the same as growing. And Brianna had wanted very badly to grow. Patrick's licensing audit moved slowly, the way regulatory processes always do, costing money and attention at a steady rate with no clean end point. He was in a new relationship within 2 months. Someone he met at an industry event who didn't yet know what she didn't know. But the room Patrick moved through was measurably smaller. The two development projects that had quietly withdrawn their participation did not return. The calls he expected to receive stopped coming in the volume he was used to. Word had moved through the professional network, the way it always moves, not in announcements, but in the slow, permanent recalibration of who trusts whom and why and how much. He was still there, still presenting well, still performing confidence in tailored suits. But the architecture of the life he had built, the institutional relationships, the social credibility, the carefully maintained impression of a serious man living a serious life, had shifted in ways that would not shift back. Brianna's mother called Andre. He took the call standing in his kitchen, one hand resting on the counter. She told him she was sorry, that she meant it, that she did not know how to say anything more useful than that. Andre told her he appreciated it. He told her she didn't need to carry any of it. His voice was even and warm and completely genuine, because he was not performing grace. He simply had no quarrel with this woman who had loved her daughter and missed what was happening, and was now holding the weight of that the way parents do. The call lasted 4 minutes. It was enough. 14 months after the parking lot, Andre signed the regional director paperwork on a Friday afternoon. 40 hours a week, a title he had earned without shortcuts. A schedule that belonged, for the first time in 3 years, mostly to him. He drove home at 3 o'clock on a weekday with nothing chasing him. Home was a renovated townhouse in a neighborhood he had chosen alone, furnished alone, arranged according to no one's preferences but his own. Kurt came on Sundays. Diane came the first Saturday of every month, always with food, and he had stopped arguing. April texted every few weeks, not about Brianna, about her own life, about observations that were more her own than they used to be. Andre always wrote back. He was glad she had chosen, when it mattered, to stop pretending. 14 months after the parking lot, Andre signed the regional director paperwork on a Friday afternoon. 40 hours a week. A title he had earned without shortcuts. A schedule that belonged, for the first time in 3 years, mostly to him. He drove home at 3 o'clock on a weekday with nothing chasing him. Home was a renovated townhouse in a neighborhood he had chosen alone, furnished alone, arranged according to no one's preferences but his own. His mother's photograph sat on the bookshelf beside the window. The kitchen was stocked with food he actually wanted to eat. The couch faced the television at an angle he had moved twice before deciding it was right. Kurt came on Sundays. They watched football and argued about things that didn't matter and ate too much. It was, Andre had quietly decided, one of the best standing appointments in his life. Diane came the first Saturday of every month. She brought food every time, despite everything he had said about his own cooking being perfectly adequate. He had stopped arguing. She was always right. April texted every few weeks. Not about Brianna, about her own life, small things. She was figuring out observations that were more her own than they used to be. Andre always wrote back. He was glad she had reached out. He was glad she had chosen, when it mattered, to stop pretending. He thought sometimes about the parking lot. That Thursday in February, the fading light, the full weight of it, pressing down on him in the silence of a car going nowhere. The moment before the decision. He thought about how close he had come to doing what they expected, to falling apart in the specific, useful way they had planned for, to handing both of them the version of himself they had already prepared to use. He thought about what would have been left of him if he had. The anger was gone. It had burned through clean and complete a long time ago, leaving nothing behind that poisoned anything. What replaced it was not forgiveness. He had no interest in that transaction, no debt to settle in that direction, but something more durable, the knowledge of exactly what he was capable of when he stopped apologizing for it. He had worked 80 hours a week for 3 years to build a life for a woman who was quietly building a door out of it. He had watched her plan to walk through that door and leave him with the wreckage. He had given her none of it. Now he worked 40 hours a week. He slept through the night. He took his mother to dinner on her birthday and stayed until she told him to go home. On a quiet Friday evening, the good light came through the windows he had chosen himself. He had nowhere to be. He owed nothing to anyone. He sat with that for a moment. Andre Washington was finally exactly where he had decided to be.